Hello and welcome to our breakdown of UFC 319 Duplessis versus Chimaev. We got an awesome event here this weekend from the United Center in Chicago. Obviously headlined by this exciting middleweight title fight, but this card from top to bottom, it's going to be an awesome event here this weekend. Joining me as always, breaking the card down for Dine Sports, Nick. How are you feeling ahead of the event coming up this weekend?
Yeah, easily one of the best pay-per-views of the year. Pretty confident in saying that. Fun fights top to bottom. I mean, obviously at the top, one of the best they can make right now. And yeah, a lot of fun matchups here. So excited to break it down with you.
All right, yeah. I mean, really, top to bottom, this card couldn't be any more stacked. Obviously, they deliver here with the pay-per-view, starting 10 p.m., concluding with the middleweight championship bout. We'll get right into it. Khamzat Chimaev minus 250. The betting favorite here as he looks to take the belt off of reigning champion Dricus du Plessis. He can be had as good as 2-1, the betting underdog here. Despite the fact du Plessis as champion has done nothing to really dissuade anyone from going to him again at the betting window. Obviously looking dominant, doing well in fights against Israel Adesanya, Sean Strickland, showcasing that, his style, although unorthodox, it works for him. Not many opponents are able to withstand the punishment that du Plessis puts on them over the course of a 5-round fight. He's very tough, huge for this middleweight division. Muscular, well built. When it comes to defending takedowns, we will dive into that a bit deeper. Obviously du Plessis has used wrestling to some extent in his fights thus far, but really his best work is done with his hands at range, utilizing strong kickboxing attacks to dig into his opponents and break them down. Very strong guy, powerful, pure knockout power in his hands. Could give Chimaev some trouble in that area. However, Chimaev, in terms of his technical striking, I'd say he's on par with the champion du Plessis. We really have seen him, obviously highlighted by his grappling, dominant wrestling early in his fights, but his fights that do get extended, we see Khamzat able to, really hurt opponents with his hands, put together solid combinations. His kicks have gotten better. He's better when it comes to distance striking. And although we don't always see him there, obviously one would think if this is a championship fight that gets extended, into round 2, into round 3, Chimaev is going to be put in those positions where you can't just dominate and grapple a big guy like du Plessis for every single minute of this fight. He's going to be forced to compete at distance in some moments. And, I trust him to do okay there. Obviously, the big story with Chimaev as he heads into this championship bout is his dominance thus far. No opponent in the UFC has gone more than a full minute without allowing Khamzat to score his first takedown. He often initiates with a super low single leg shot just to engage with his opponent. And from there, he'll very quickly move to the back, get the body lock, work from there. Just dominant when it comes to controlling his opponents once he does get them down. And I kind of see the same fate here for du Plessis. As good as the champion has been, heading into this fight too, obviously training, drilling, takedown defense. I'm not sure he's going to be able to stop that initial shot out of Khamzat Chimaev. I do think Chimaev is going to be able to put du Plessis in positions that we have not seen him before. He hasn't really fought a complete wrestler like Chimaev thus far. So certainly should not surprise anyone if Khamzat is able to slice through du Plessis on the mat. The one thing with this prediction has to come early. You'll hear from probably everyone breaking down the fight this week that the later it goes, the more it does favor du Plessis, and that is true. I'd even maybe look to live bet the champion if he's fighting well and he's still there at the end of just 2 rounds, because Khamzat has not proven to have the 5-round cardio that du Plessis does. But I do expect him to win this fight. I think he is going to score that early takedown. Probably find a way to finish du Plessis. I'll predict by a ground and pound. But yeah, this is Chimaev's moment. Don't feel great going against the champion like du Plessis, but yeah, I got to go with Khamzat here in my opinion.
Yeah, first and foremost, no fighter I think has cost me more than Dricus du Plessis on this title run. I mean, 4 wins in a row over former champions. I don't think I picked him in any of those fights. This guy's kind of been the bane of my existence. I mean, you hear it across the industry, though. When you watch this guy on film, really not all that technically sound. You brought it up, though. It works for him. I mean, he's well aware that he's not the prettiest fighter to watch in terms of just technical striking or grappling, really. But yeah, I mean, it works for him. And what really matters other than that? I mean, the guy gets wins. He's the champ. He's defended the belt. He's proven himself. But yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting matchup. I think the obvious narrative, and you just brought it up, that people are painting this week is that Khamzat probably needs to get it done early. I do think we're going to see improved cardio here, but I don't know that that even comes into play. One thing you brought up, I don't know that we've seen Dricus against a true wrestler yet in the UFC. I mean, the one he did face was Derek Brunson. He was losing that fight for a while. Brunson certainly passed his prime, made a lot of mistakes, fell off of Dricus's back, and then he was finished after that, gassed himself out too. Derek Brunson actually tweeted today he had COVID for that fight, so who knows if that's 100% Derek Brunson if we're where we are at now with this fight. But since then, Dricus has been on an absolute tear. I love that you brought up Chimaev's style of takedown. We see from Gamrot a little bit, but Chimaev's certainly more dominant, just diving for that leg. And he gets so low that his own knees are hitting the mat. Really, no one gets as low as him. Low man wins, not only in football on the line, but also in fighting when we're talking about grapplers at this level. I'm on the Chimaev side. I do think he gets it done, but I do want to just kind of include the caveat that I've been so wrong about du Plessis time and time again. A lot of people have. So yeah, would it surprise me if he's able to extend this a bit and take Chimaev out as this fight wears on? Certainly not. But at the same time, I do think we see improved cardio out of Chimaev, even if he's super aggressive early, seems entirely locked in. This is a guy who's dealt with long COVID and injuries and a bunch of different stuff. I'm excited to see the way, and I'm sure he's on point, but he's been training with a bunch of different guys. We'll talk about one of them on this card in a little bit, but really, really solid camp. I like what he's been doing. And yeah, I think this is, again, like I said, one of the best fights that the UFC can make right now. I disrespected du Plessis on this title run, but he deserves respect. But I think he's getting enough on the line here. I don't love the money line. I do think more likely than not, though, Khamzat probably wins via finish, so you could probably just play him inside the distance. Yeah, I like Chimaev here. I think he gets it done, but I'd be lying if I said I was confident just because du Plessis has really burnt me so many times in the past. Oh, one more thing too before I pass it back to you. Sorry, don't mean to cut you off. Only talking about the grappling. I think on the feet, Chimaev's underrated. Like in terms of his striking ability. Excuse me. He could throw some body kicks here, keep du Plessis at a little bit of a distance. I think he's actually the better technical boxer in the pocket. Du Plessis, he's great with those blitzes, but if Chimaev is smart, he's going to use those to create takedowns. So I just wanted to touch on the striking. Again, Chimaev definitely underrated as a striker. I'd honestly argue that Plessis is as well at this point. But yeah, I think that dynamic on the feet, it's much closer than maybe some are expecting it to be. It's not an entirely binary fight, striker versus grappler at all. Du Plessis certainly has some credentials on the mat as well, but I do think Chimaev is going to get his game and be able to kind of do what he wants here, at least early.
No, I'm definitely with you. I'm with you on playing the inside the distance on Chimaev instead of the straight money line if you are going to play him. And yeah, the striking, as I had said as well, I like the knockout. It pays better than submission. If I was going one way or the other, I'd rather the plus 450 by knockout on the Chimaev side, given that striking edge he does have, and again the equity to finish by ground and pound.
Do we know? Not to cut you off again, but do we know the ref yet?
No, I do not. I'm not sure if that listing is out. It's normally I think Friday prior.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, one of the guys like Goddard or Herb who are kind of UFC guys, even though they work for other promotions. If it's one of them, I mean, I like the KO even more. Maybe we get a little bit of an early stoppage, like we've seen a lot in this middleweight division. So, yeah, don't mind the angle at all.
I think it would be fitting to just the way Khamzat, began his UFC career throughout, winning via ground and pound, top position, smashing his opponent. Could see that being the route for him here. All right, the co-main event we'll look at next. This is an awesome fight here at featherweight. Aaron Pico, minus 180, the betting favorite here against Lerone Murphy, who can be had at plus 145. Pico's somebody else who's been training with Khamzat here this week, getting some shine here on his big pay-per-view card. Pico originally scheduled to make his promotional debut on this card versus Movsar Evloev, but instead getting Murphy here, stepping in as a replacement. This is a much better draw for Pico, I must say. I think he was going to have a very tough time against a superior wrestler in Evloev to go up and debut against. Could still really, improve his stock, insert himself into the UFC title picture with a victory here. I just don't think it's going to hold as much weight as a victory over Movsar Evloev would. That being said, Lerone Murphy is no slouch. Very long winning streak, currently stepping in unbeaten in his last, never lost, I should say, in MMA.
Forever.
Yeah. But again, at the UFC level, coming in 8 consecutive UFC victories, very impressive. You're facing Pico, who has never won in the promotion, a 12-4 record throughout his career in Bellator. Obviously, one of these Bellator fighters that is very highly regarded. Pico, when he first entered the scene over in that promotion, was hyped up, as you would, an up-and-coming prospect, dominant boxing. Really like what Pico could do with his hands. Landing big hooks, stepping in. I think his best shot is that left hook to the body. His highlights show a lot of one-punch knockouts, but again, that isn't against the highest level of competition. I'm not sure he's going to be able to really put his striking on display at the UFC level, depending on the opponents he draws into, but this should be a matchup with Murphy that is largely going to be contested on the feet. And I think Pico should certainly have his moments. I just don't think he's rightfully favored here against a guy in Lerone Murphy, who's so complete, has shown time and time again his ability to fight a full 5 rounds, his ability to weather that early storm, survive even in sketchy moments against opponents, and just prove over the course of as the fight goes on that he can be the better fighter. I'm not ready to trust Pico competing in the promotion as the odds-on betting favorite. Bellator has had several high-level fighters come over to the UFC, and they always tend to struggle in that first performance. I again think Pico's the better technical striker. I think he has great equity to win this fight via knockout, but otherwise, if this is going to judges' decisions, if these are closer rounds, I trust Murphy to put forth consistent offense and really outperform his price as betting underdog. As long as he's not getting starched in there, which we haven't seen before, I think he's going to find a way to get this victory.
Yeah, so this fight's really interesting. I agree initially with you. When you look at the line, I do think that there's value on Murphy as an underdog. It's a little bit surprising to see Pico, come in here as the favorite. You covered the striking well. I mean, this guy was a Golden Gloves boxer, really talented. Left hook is his best weapon. Throws it to the body, to the head. He sets it up well. But what you didn't touch on much is how good of a wrestler he was. He was very close to qualifying for the Olympics. Super, super solid wrestler. Quality control time when he is on top, and his jiu-jitsu has improved. He definitely looks for the ground and pound more than he does submissions, but he is an excellent grappler. And while I'm watching film on Murphy this week, I mean, I go back to the Santos fight, the Ige fight, he gets taken down pretty easily. 52% takedown defense. I think the path to victory here for Pico is to wrestle, and I'm kind of surprised that I'm starting to like the Pico side. I do think it's a ridiculous step up in level of competition, but there's a little bit of narrative in play here as well. The Evloev fight is just, I agree, that was going to be tough. But here, I think he has such a big grappling advantage, and it's funny to me. When the Bellator PFL kind of merger first happened, and then all the fighters were complaining, right? All the interview questions were like, hey, you're going to bring over Patchy Mix, or you're going to bring over Pitbull? Like, which of these guys do you want on the roster? Maybe a Johnny Eblin. And it's funny, Dana was like, I don't know, we haven't talked to many, but I'll tell you this, Shelby and Mick Maynard and Hunter, they all really want Aaron Pico. That's the guy they're talking to. So ahead of all the these other guys who we've seen who've had mixed results, Pico was the guy that they really kind of had their eye on, and it is for good reason. Again, super credentialed striker and wrestler. I think the struggles early in his career just came because, I mean, he was learning on the job. We're about to talk about Hooper in a little bit. Kind of a similar situation, albeit not on the same level. But this is a guy who started with Bellator, and obviously Bellator is a lower level promotion than the UFC. But if you're comparing it to what's out there regionally nowadays, I mean, it's certainly tough to kind of make your pro debut there and fight there for as long as he did. So I agree with you that Murphy's probably disrespected here on the money line, right? But I do think there's a big hole in his game in terms of the grappling. And if Pico can just consistently take him down, I think he could win this on the scorecards, even if he's not winning all the striking exchanges on the feet. Murphy does a great job avoiding his opponents. I mean, kind of circling away. He's super frustrating. We saw it in the Emmett fight. We saw it at times in the Ige fight. I mean, most of his fights, just a tough guy to tag, right? But all of his opponents are having moments, and just a 52% takedown defense in the UFC. I don't know that he's seen a wrestler on the level of an Aaron Pico. So if Pico goes in there with the right game plan and he's going to grapple, I do think he's probably going to look like the rightful favorite. At the same time, I do think it is worth kind of weighing the point that these Bellator guys haven't looked great in their debuts. There's a few exceptions, obviously MVP, Chandler, etc. But it is interesting to me how heavy the UFC was in pursuit of Pico ahead of some of these other bigger names in the Pitbulls and the Patchy Mixes of the world. I'm currently on Pico. I do want to see what they look like at weigh-ins here. Both these guys taking this fight on somewhat short notice. I also think that's another reason to maybe look at Pico, guy who was training for Evloev. Murphy didn't have a fight taking this on somewhat a short notice, but he took it because he thought he could win it. So I don't know. A little bit torn. Early in the week, I was all over Murphy, but in watching the film, just seeing the hole in his wrestling defense, I'm concerned about it here. With guys like Ige and Santos are taking you down relatively easily, I think Pico's going to be able to as well.
All right, we'll see how much he does implement that wrestling too here, trying to make a statement, his first fight with the promotion. And yeah, just regards to the short nature too, Murphy only flying into Chicago like this Sunday. I think it's a little rushed, only having, a couple days there here ahead of the fight. But nonetheless, we move on now. Take a look at the welterweight featured fight, this between Carlos Prates and Geoff Neal. Prates minus 250, the betting favorite in this spot against Neal, who could be had at 2-1. So last year, back in 2024, I mean, Prates was a monster, winning all 4 of his UFC performances via knockout. It's very rare that we see a fighter get performance of the night in 4 straight outings, but he did just that. Looked like he had, this division in the palm of his hands. And that resulted in him headlining against Ian Gary in that spot back in April, obviously resulting in Prates' first loss in the UFC. I mean, he rallied late in that fight. Gary was able to win most of those rounds thanks to resistance management, mixing in the grappling as well, something that really Geoff Neal is unlikely to show Prates in this particular matchup. I am kind of expecting Prates to bounce back here, more comfortable spot facing a striker, somebody, Neal, a boxer that's gladly going to oblige Prates here, competing on the feet. Neal's good. I mean, he's going to be unloading tight combos from the southpaw stance while Prates is constantly moving around and picking away at range from the outside. Really wouldn't surprise me if Neal does have, the better volume early on in this fight, but I think overall Prates is going to do well switching his stances, landing the strikes that matter, setting up the powerful hooks as he hunts for the finish. He does really well once he knows his opponents are hurt, really just unloading with, measured attacks. But again, these huge hooks from far outside, a dangerous striker in this division. I think he's going to continue to find success, even despite the 1 loss his last time out against a very good fighter in Ian Gary. I think he can hurt Neal here. I think he has the potential to knock him down. And I think he's going to really look good in close range where Neal really often finds success. Neal great with his tight pocket boxing, but Prates has a great Muay Thai. He's going to land big knees, attacks like that in those close clinch positions. I feel pretty confident picking him here in this fight against Geoff Neal. Obviously, Neal, potent knockout threat, but I think Prates is going to get the better of him in those striking exchanges. And I'm picking him to win here this weekend.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I'm on the Prates side, but I do have a few concerns. I mean, if you look at all those wins, like even when he's getting the performance bonuses, he's been a slow starter in the UFC. I mean, going back to the Giles fight, I think he even dropped that first round. Obviously got the knee to the body against Radke, but that took some time to build. Same with Lee. So yeah, as good as he is, and he is kind of a sniper that way, I don't know that he's going to have that KO shot against the guy in Geoff Neal who's never been knocked out before. Um, but if he comes in here saying, "Hey, I took too long to get going that last fight. I just chased the knockout the entire time. I only have 3 rounds here. My cardio, no matter how many cigarettes I smoke, is probably going to be okay." And he's a little bit more aggressive than usual. I do think this is fight to win. Two really good technical strikers. Neal a little bit past his prime, though. I don't like how kind of stationary he is a lot of the time. Prates is definitely a guy who does move around a little bit better. They both have solid footwork, but Neal doesn't really use it to his advantage as much as Prates does. So I like Prates here, but if he is a slow first round or he takes a while to get going, I'm concerned about his ability to find the KO like he has in some of these previous matchups. I am going to pick him here. I think the decision's more likely than not. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he dropped the first round and we got a better price on him. I have trouble expecting him to find the KO on a guy in Neal who's never been finished before. But yeah, I think he's the guy. If he's got the good game plan coming out of Fighting Nerds, it should be a fight he should be able to win, just kind of evading and landing. But again, I mean, there have been plenty of fights of his in the UFC against lower level opponents where he finds that timely KO in fights he's losing. Because again, he's chasing the KO. It is by design. But if he tries that here, I don't know that he's successful. So I like him, just not nearly as confident as you, I think.
All right. Let's move on. Take a look at this next matchup here at middleweight. Another great fight. Michael Venom Page, minus 190, the betting favorite in this spot against Jared Cannonier, who could be had at plus 155. Again, just to highlight how stacked this card is, how many, fight night main events has it been in a row for Jared Cannonier? This guy is used to headlining cards, and here he is for the first time, I think, since 2019, fighting in a 3-round fight. Obviously, Cannonier has the experience against the upper echelon competition at middleweight that Venom Page does not yet. But Venom Page proving, in his last fight against Shar Magomedov, he can bang with these guys up at 185 pounds. I was a bit worried about his size, but not an issue at all. Obviously, a guy with a big frame like that, it should not be. But I feel like some of the more physical and dominant wrestlers at middleweight could pose issues for Michael Venom Page. In that same sentence, Jared Cannonier, as big and strong as they come, just not somebody who always looks to implement that wrestling and grappling. Certainly could do so here, win a round of this fight by simply taking Michael Venom Page down to the mat. But that is, again, not always in the cards for Jared Cannonier. Really just a super consistent fighter. He's going to arrive in excellent shape, give you his all, stand there. Defense solid, striking offense. At sometimes, the volume isn't necessarily there for Jared Cannonier. I don't think he's going to be chasing Venom Page around the cage and looking to land a lot of big strikes in this fight. I think he's going to take a more educated approach, obviously, honing a game plan that should work with his team at the MMA lab. I just think Page is rightfully favored here, competing in the larger octagon in just a 3-round fight. Again, these are variables that are changing for Cannonier, who has spent a lot of times at the UFC Apex in Vegas, going a full 5 rounds and having to measure his pace over the course of a 25-minute fight. Will his approach be different here? Is he going to take a hot enough start, not drop the first round to Venom Page, when he should be lightest on his feet, most dangerous, and landing the better counters here? But again, with the bigger octagon, I think Page is going to have enough space to work, keep Cannonier at the end of his shots, and keep out of his grasp over the course of this fight. It just is a super close one to predict. I'm not really going to be going to the betting window or putting much on Page at these odds. I think that's a bit crazy. Again, Cannonier could easily steal 2 rounds here, just by doing what he does, implementing his grappling or holding Page along fence. Could make this a more boring fight than necessarily needs to be. But tough one. I do think Page is going to keep his distance and win this one with his striking. But yeah, super tough one to call for me.
No, I'm with you. I think this is one of the more difficult fights on the card to call because if we get Jared Cannonier in here with the right game plan, right head on his shoulders, I think this is a fight he could win. It's just a question of is that going to take place or not? Also, these are two guys getting up there in age. Page also in a weight class, he says himself this week that he's still not comfortable in. He said if he's going to stick at 185, he needs to kind of pack on more muscle. He's not quite there yet. But yeah, they offered him enough money to take this fight, so it is what it is. Cannonier has been rocked a lot recently. I do think that there is a world where MVP is able to find the KO. I also think, to your point, in the big cage, should be able to just kind of stay at distance. And if this is a striking fight, I'd favor MVP by a very wide margin. But if Cannonier comes in and chooses to grapple, only averaging 0.46 takedowns per 15 minutes, I think he could win, and I think he could dominate. It's just been so long since we've seen that out of him. It's just, how do you not try to take down MVP if you're Cannonier? Not only will he have a major grappling advantage, but he has a major size and strength advantage here. Going to be the much stronger fighter. This guy used to fight at heavyweight. I mean, he cuts a ton of weight to make middleweight. The night of this fight, I mean, he might have a 20 to 30 pound weight advantage. But again, if he's not able to close the distance to get those takedowns, he's going to get battered at range. I don't know. I'm torn. Right now I'm on the MVP side, but as always, I'll use this, lack of decisiveness as an opportunity to plug the article, which will be out on Dines on their Twitter and on the website Saturday morning, where we have our final picks and methods as well. But yeah, right now I'm on MVP, but I'm going to do a little digging tonight, right? If I could find some interviews where Cannonier's talking about grappling, and he's a tough guy to get a good interview out of, he hates media, then maybe I flip my pick. But for now, I'm on Page. But the path is there for Cannonier. I just don't know that he goes for it.
All right, and now let's break down the main card opener. This is a fight at Flyweight between Kai Asakura and Tim Elliott. Kai Asakura minus 350, the betting favorite, against Elliott, who could be had plus 270 right now. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, this is a little bit similar to the Cannonier fight in that I think Elliott does have a clear path to victory here if he's going to grapple consistently and keep his head on his shoulders. It's just, I don't know that he'll be able to. Kai Asakura, obviously debuting against the champion, never an easy task, but he was exposed a bit on the mat there against the grappler in Pantoja, who I certainly rate higher than Elliott. But Elliott averages 3.7 takedowns per 15 minutes. We've seen him take down a lot of good wrestlers in the past. He had moments taking down Makayev, Ulanbekov. I mean, the list goes on and on. But he is past his prime. He has been out of action for a while. And coming into the fight week this week, I mean, I love Tim Elliott. You know, I've always been a fan of his, cashed a bunch of underdog tickets on him, but I don't love everything I'm hearing. I mean, he's like, hey, it's been a long journey. He's like posting pictures of some girl he's staying with in his hotel room. I don't know how entirely focused he is, especially with the long layoff. But yeah, Kai on the feet is going to look amazing here. I think he's going to be dominant. Elliott is awkward enough that it could be tough for him at times, but it's not like Elliott really has the power to slow him down. Asakura has these knees, tremendous knees. I think he could throw a few of those up the middle, keep Elliott on his back foot, and that's where he should be able to kind of dominate from there. I think he's very live for a KO. I don't believe Elliott's ever been knocked out, though. But still, we saw it last week with Anders, guy who's never been KO'd, got KO'd. I mean, things change, especially as these guys get up there in age. I'm on the Asakura side, but again, I think I'd more likely flip to Cannonier, but Elliott here, if he just grapples for 15 minutes, this fight would suck. The crowd will be booing. They'll hate it. They'll hate him, but he could win. But yeah, I just don't know that at this point in his career, he has that in him anymore. And again, I don't know that he's the type to just grapple for 15 minutes. This is a guy who does like to play it up for the crowd. He is kind of a fan favorite for his wild style. And we've seen it before. He'll win a whole first round, just 4 minutes of control time grappling and then not shoot a takedown for the rest of the fight. So yeah, I like Asakura here. I will say Elliott has a path to victory, though, as a pretty heavy underdog.
Yeah, I'm on the Asakura side as well in this fight. Tim Elliott, you mentioned just one knockout loss on his pro career. I think that came very early on. But this is now a guy that's 38 years old, fighting here at Flyweight. He's 18 months removed from competition. Been a while since we've seen him in there fighting. Removed from his last bout, I believe, with an injury as well. Kai Asakura, yeah, obviously debuting against a dominant champion like Pantoja. I think we all expected it to go in that manner. That was also Asakura's first time fighting in a Octagon instead of a ring. Didn't really have a huge effect in that fight, but I think again, as he gets more comfortable fighting in the promotion, fighting against guys at this level, we're going to see him more develop into the game we were used to seeing back when he was competing in Risen. As far as Asakura's striking goes, he's going to be much faster than Tim Elliott. Should land the much more powerful shots as well. Has equity to finish this fight, whereas I don't really see the same out of Elliott. Yes, he has the grappling, the wrestling to take Asakura down and perhaps hold him on the mat for some moments, but he is not the submission grappler that the champion Alexandre Pantoja is. I do not think Asakura is going to get put in many submissions or even submission attempts this spot against Elliott. He even could see, some improvements compared to that last fight. Getting up, getting back to his feet. Elliott, yes, he does wrestle well. He has had, fights with a lot of accrued top control time, but he also isn't the biggest. And I think Asakura should be able to fight back to his feet if he does get put to the mat once or twice in this spot. Again, just a decisive edge on the feet striking against a 38-year-old opponent in Tim Elliott. I think it would be hard for him to lose this fight. I don't think he's going to lose inside the distance. And Tim Elliott would have to really do a lot to win a decision. I think it's going to start to look worse for him the later that this fight goes. So give me Asakura there. All right, next, let's move on to the prelim portion of this event. The featured prelim just put together here on short notice. Baisanger Sursurkayev winning on Dana White's Contender Series just Tuesday night. Now getting an opponent here to fight in Chicago at UFC 319. Eric Nolan will be stepping in the plus 600 betting underdog to face Sursurkayev in this spot. Certainly some interesting circumstances surrounding this one, but when it comes to Dana White and the UFC promoters, they're not going to miss the opportunity to strike while the iron's hot. Sursurkayev winning against Murtaza Talha on Dana White's Contender Series Tuesday night was the one finish on that event, the one contract, not the one contract signed. But again, Sursurkayev looking incredible there. A long, undefeated striker, winning via front kick up the middle to Talha's gut. But apart from that, just he got to show it in that brief fight on Contender Series. His distance management, his feinting, his kickboxing skills are elite. This is a kid who's been training at All Stars with Khamzat Chimaev. I love the circumstance, him making his debut here, just 4 days removed from a fight, the same way when Khamzat first came into the promotion, took his first 2 UFC fights with just 10 days between them. Setting a modern record. Sursurkayev will set that modern record here this weekend as Chimaev fights for a belt. So I think that's kind of cool. Chimaev, the press conference today, saying to Nolan, you better be careful. This guy's even better than me. And, I'm believing in the hype as well. I love what we got to see out of this kid there on Tuesday night. Still so young. Getting in a matchup against this opponent in Nolan, who has looked good, but really has not faced very high level competition. I think the UFC knows what they're doing. Had this guy waiting in the wings, and it's somebody that Sursurkayev should be able to showcase his striking once again here up against. Well, the money line's out for this fight. We don't have prop odds yet. Obviously, Sursurkayev by knockout would be my look, but I'm sure that's going to be juice. You're going to be paying like minus 250 or even worse for that, but should be an easy win for him here facing Nolan, on super short notice.
Yeah, man. The UFC is very intentional in what they're doing here, obviously. Sursurkayev becomes a commercial not only for the main card as the feature prelim, with Chimaev being on the card, but also for the entire rest of the season of Contender Series. Not only is he taking this fight on short notice, he took that Contender Series fight on short notice. 10 days ago, he had nothing scheduled, and now he has 2 fights in just a few days. So a tremendous story. I was watching film on this guy for the Contender Series, and I've been watching more today just because it's so enjoyable. He's an amazing striker. And the way he strikes is very similar, and this is scary to say out loud, but because it gets thrown around sometimes, to an Anderson Silva. I mean, he is in a flow state from start to finish. I think his confidence is just tremendous. I mean, just he had his leg caught right in that last fight against Talha, and he was ducking punches like we see out of Fiziev, like bending his back and stuff, with one leg up on Talha's shoulder. So just ridiculous defense. Super cerebral when he's striking too. Like he'll bait guys into uppercuts. He does a good job kind of leading them to the cage, and then right as they decide they're going to back up, he'll blitz at them and throw a knee up the middle. It's just so fun to watch this guy. And we're only talking about the striking. He's a damn good wrestler as well. I mean, I've seen him take down guys on the regional scene, credential wrestlers. This guy Ariki Kucha Heeds or whatever, a pretty good grappler from what I've seen. But yeah, he was kind of dominating him on the mat, picking him up, putting him down at will, just great everywhere. And again, the UFC knows what they're doing here. Eric Nolan, I mean, I feel for him. The biggest thing he brings to the table is a really powerful hook, really good puncher. I mean, he has KO power at 170 pounds, but he's also taking this fight on extremely short notice, and he is moving up a weight class here. These guys are listed at the same height. I don't think they're the same height. Both listed at 6'2". I don't think Nolan's 6'2", for being completely honest. But yeah, I mean, Nolan, I do think he could stick in the UFC for a little bit. He actually does have some wrestling of his own. Good striker in the pocket. He does a good job setting up those power shots, but this is just too much for him. And again, I don't think the UFC puts this kid, Susakayev, in the feature prelim, has him go on the contender series in the first episode of the season, and turns him around this way if they weren't trying to use him as a promotional vehicle. And that's what we're going to see. I like Susakayev. I like him to find the KO. I'm hoping the line isn't too ridiculous. But yeah, shouts out to Nolan for taking the fight. Yeah, it's just a really, really tough matchup for him, in my opinion.
All right, definitely looking forward to that one there. Next up, we'll take a look at this middleweight matchup on the prelims. Mikhail Olajaychuk minus 250, the betting favorite against Gerald Meerschaert, who could be had at 2-1, the underdog. This pretty binary fight to go ahead and break down. Olajaychuk, obviously dangerous with his hands, very potent striker. Susceptible to the submission as well. We've seen him finish by submission 3 of his last 4 losses. Really doesn't always know the best answer when put on the mat against his opponents. Even caught in submissions when he has been in dominant position on top before. Winning his most recent fight against Dricus Dumas, he did look good there. Said that was his first camp competing with the Fighting Nerds. Looks like he's continued to train with Fighting Nerds here ahead of this matchup with Gerald Meerschaert. And I think that could be key to deciding this matchup, as crazy as that may sound. Olajaychuk just not always known for his fight IQ, and that's the one area that, you know, when you're with the Fighting Nerds, that should be improving. Anyone fighting Gerald Meerschaert should know you have to keep space and put your hands on him. You obviously don't want to get caught against the man with the most submission victories in the UFC middleweight. It's a winnable fight though for Meerschaert, facing an opponent that's, you know, old, just like him. Meerschaert very long in the tooth at this point, slow moving, offers very little on the feet, throws with some power, but really just poor striking defense, doesn't get his hands up all the time, and often has his chin exposed just because of his slow reaction time. I think Olajaychuk can capitalize by landing big strikes against Meerschaert here early, but if that knockout does not materialize in the first or second round for Olajaychuk, I think Meerschaert, as always, is going to do what he does and, you know, find a way to close the distance against Olajaychuk and drag him to the mat and win via submission. I was very close to picking him in the spot. I do think Olajaychuk will have that knockout materialize. I think he's going to get the jump on Meerschaert early. It's hard not to. I mean, in the first round, if you're standing against the guy, if he's not shooting in for takedowns right from the jump, Olajaychuk should be able to put together a decent combination or two that could have Meerschaert hurt, you know, in the first couple of minutes. So I'd rather go that way. Obviously, though, I'll be ready to tear up any tickets I have on Olajaychuk if this gets into, you know, round 2, round 3. He himself not known for his cardio, has gassed in fights before. Again, hopefully improve pace, training with the team that can actually give him a solid game plan. But I do worry about the late submission here coming from GM3. Certainly a tough fight to predict.
Yeah, this is tricky. I do think the line's a little bit wide. I don't know. I mean, Ola Jacek's grappling is honestly terrible, and I'm sure going to the Fighting Nerds has improved it. But yeah, I mean, just really has been a major, major weakness for him to this point in his UFC career. I mean, losing to Cody Brundage via ground and pound kind of tells you all you really need to know. I mean, the win over Dricus Dumas is what it is, but I'm a little bit surprised the line is as wide as it is. And yeah, on the feet, he's light years ahead of Gerald Meerschaert. Probably going to double him up on volume. Probably going to land at will to an extent. But if Meerschaert could just stay awake and not get KO'd here, maybe he's able to drag this fight to the mat, which I think even in the first round, he's going to be live to find that submission because, again, Ola Jacek, I don't know how much you could learn in a year, but it's not enough to be anywhere near what Gerald Meerschaert is on the mat. I get it. I mean, the age gap is certainly significant here. Meerschaert is slow, but if he could just find a way to get this fight to the mat, like he did against an Edmund Shabazian, like he did, who else? Against Brian Barberina, who's pretty easy to take down. I mean, this is a similar matchup in a lot of ways. So I don't know. I want to see weigh-ins. Ola Jacek kind of small for 185. He spent a lot of time kind of fluctuating between weight classes. I want to see if he's filled out a bit. And if Meerschaert looks good as well, I mean, getting up there in age, he usually looks fine at weigh-ins. But trying to get a little bit more about the intangibles on these two guys here before I make my final prediction. I entirely understand taking Ola Jacek as the favorite. On the feet, he's going to dominate. But it just takes one mistake or one little slip-up for Gerald to kind of get this fight into where he's going to find success. So Ola Jacek, 48% takedown defense in the UFC. Meerschaert, not a great wrestler, but if he can find a way to get this fight to the mat, he should dominate. So it's super, super binary. I do think the most likely outcome is the Ola Jacek KO early, but the second most likely outcome is just a Meerschaert sub one way or another. So I really don't like the money line at all here. I do think this is a fight that it would shock me to go the distance. I'm sure the price is totally juiced, but we're either seeing Meerschaert with his lights out or Ola Jacek losing a limb. So, yeah, another fight I'm not 100% decided on. Slightly preferring Meerschaert just for the value, but not quite enough to pull the trigger yet.
Yeah, and the no distance price isn't that bad. I actually wouldn't mind a play on it. Personally, I was looking at does not start round 3, but you can play no distance in this fight minus 350. Under 2.5, a bit better look. Looking at minus 275. Just some options here as well. I'm with you. I don't think that one's going to see these scorecards. All right, let's look at this next matchup. This at women's strawweight between Lupita Godinez and Jessica Andrade. Godinez minus 150, the betting favorite here against Andrade, who could be had at plus 125. Money has come in on Jessica Andrade. She's got a good chunk of a handle at this point, and we've seen the odds close in this matchup as a result. I need to see her on the scales before I'm willing to pull the trigger, but I am leaning the way of Andrade here in this matchup. She lost her last 2, and she really did not look very good. But that is Andrade fighting at women's flyweight. I think when competing at 125 pounds, it's been evident throughout Andrade's career. She's not necessarily showing up to win. Like the effort isn't always there. But when she's competing otherwise, 135, she looked great. But 115 is her natural weight class, and it's when Jessica Andrade is at her best. She won at strawweight fighting at UFC 300, looking good in that matchup. She won her matchup prior to that at strawweight as well. If she's able to make weight this weekend, looks good doing it. I'm going to feel pretty good taking her here against Lupita Godinez. This is a matchup where I do fear Andrade may struggle getting taken down by the superior wrestler. Godinez does, average 3 takedowns landed per fight, but she doesn't always, pursue them even as frequently as I would like. That is the best part of her game. Her striking's rudimentary. She really doesn't hurt her opponent. She just puts forth consistent volume. And against a former champion like Andrade, I could really see Godinez getting hurt here if she's not implementing her grappling. Yes, I know that's the area where Andrade has struggled in the past. when it comes to defending against strong wrestlers. But again, that's probably going to be a tough area for her in this matchup as well. But on the feet, Godina is going to have a hell of a time, I think, dealing with Jessica Andrade. I'm not ready to write off the former champion if she is, dialed in once again. Done with, she was dealing with a lot of personal lawsuits and things like that as well. If she's dialed in, if she makes the weight here this Friday, I think I'm going to be going and taking Jessica Andrade here. I think an attractive underdog in the spot, just given her UFC experience and the striking advantage that she does have against Lupita Godinez.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I will touch on Godinez a little bit more just because you kind of covered Andrade for the most part. But yeah, I mean, Andrade first and foremost, much better fighter, 115 pounds. I agree. We want to see her make the weight. Lupi's been pretty inconsistent, if we're being completely honest. I mean, the win over Ricci's aged extremely well. She looked good in that fight against another really small girl who doesn't strike all that well. But other than that, I mean, kind of mixed results. I mean, losing to Angela Hill, where she really couldn't get her takedowns going at all. She's been super inconsistent. I mean, she looks tremendous at times, but sometimes she comes out like she did against Calvillo, really just fighting down to the level of her opponent. I do believe she's improved over the past few years, but again, I mean, when she's taking on the top of the division, she has struggled, coming off a decent win over Julia Pilastri, but I don't rate Pilastri all that highly. Andrade, another one of these fighters who's just so inconsistent. If she is at her best, she is locked in. I do think she's probably a great play as an underdog here, for being completely honest. Again, just a much different fighter at 115 pounds. Her last two wins at 115 pounds came against Tatiana Suarez, Yao Jianan, two women who challenged for the belt, and then Erin Blanchfield, who's right around the corner there. So it's not like she's losing to low-level opponents. And again, I just think Lupi's maybe even more inconsistent than Andrade's, and I just like that this fight's down 115 pounds for Andrade. She can't compete at 125. She's just not the same fighter. So I like the move down. I do want to see the weigh-in. I am concerned that Lupi can just kind of take her down. But if Andrade is smart, she should be able to work her way back to her feet. I mean, she got choked out by Juice Vicious and Tatiana Suarez and Erin Blanchfield, but all of them have better jiu-jitsu than Lupi, in my opinion. They're all bigger and stronger as well. So yeah, I'm with you, man. I actually think there is a lot of value on the Andrade side as the underdog, but always need to see her at weigh-in. Sometimes she looks terrible, just wobbling on the scale. If she's dialed in, totally agree. She's a great value piece here.
Okay. For the televised prelims kicking off 8 p.m., we'll look at this next fight here at lightweight. Chase Hooper minus 320, the betting favorite, against Alexander Hernandez, who could be had at plus 250. The underdog, Nick, what do you think about this matchup here?
Yeah, I mean, I do like Hooper here. I do think the line's a little bit disrespectful, though, because on the feet, Hernandez is going to be the much better striker. Hernandez, I mean, he's tough, he's strong, he's a great athlete. Most of Hooper's recent wins have come against guys who are kind of aging out, and Jim Miller and Clay Guida. I mean, even Borshev's getting up there in age as well. So as impressive as he's been at 155, this is a considerable step up in competition for him. Hernandez coming off two solid wins of his own against Kurt Hollaby and Austin Hubbard. Very competitive matchups. But yeah, the key here for Hooper is going to be to get this fight to the mat where he should be able to find success. Tremendous submission grappler, as everybody knows. He is filling out that frame. He's finally starting to look like a true lightweight. But at the same time, man, on the feet here, it is going to be a little bit scary. Hernandez does still have power in his strikes. He is a great first round fighter, so I do think he's going to be dangerous early. Hooper's always just, even when you're confident in him, you got to hold your breath a little bit, just because we've seen him before in some really rough positions, especially on the feet. I don't know. I'm on the Hooper side. I am going to pick him. Hernandez does have decent submission defense. I don't think it's certain that he gets finished, so this could go to the scorecards. But yeah, I'm on the Hooper side, but not nearly as confident as the bookmakers this week. Around minus 300, that feels a little bit inflated in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the odds are right about where they should be. I'm on the Hooper side as well. Certainly Hernandez a bit disrespected, with odds that low, but Hooper entering here on this 5-fight winning streak, filling into his frame at lightweight. Really looking good at 155 pounds. His last fight against Jim Miller, again, utilizing his grappling, his best asset, really put that on display in that fight. 8 takedowns and 10 minutes of total control time. against Jim Miller. The grappling is going to be key here facing Hernandez, who himself has been known to, shoot a few takedowns at times, get his own wrestling going. 4 successful takedowns for Hernandez in his most recent fight. His confidence in that area, I think, could give him some issues against Hooper, but it's also going to allow him to escape some of those positions too. I could see a lot of this fight being, Hooper getting the takedown, Hernandez fighting his way out, but confidently staying on top and, getting wrapped back into, a toe hold by Hooper or another sort of submission attempt. I think Hooper's also been fighting the slightly better competition, as of late over his past 3 fights, looking really solid. Whereas Hernandez is winning fights that I would consider the fights that he is supposed to. I think it's going to be more difficult for him here to strike against Hooper, given a 2-inch reach and 5-inch advantage in height for him. He's proven to struggle at times against upper echelon grapplers, and I think with the size Hooper has too, it's not only going to be felt there in the striking department, but in the grappling department as well. He should be able to grab an arm or roll to a leg of Hernandez much more quickly than Hernandez is able to respond. And although Hernandez is a pretty small and compact wrestler, he also could find it very easy to give his back to chase Hooper. I can see a lot of this fight taking place in that position. And again, even those moments on the feet, I'm pretty confident that Hooper is going to be able to utilize his kicks, keep distance, and at least fight a smart fight against Hernandez, who he knows is going to be coming in and looking to close the distance, land powerful strikes in the pocket. So Hooper has shown intelligent game plans throughout his fights in the past. I think he's going to find a way to win this one. And I feel pretty confident picking him to do so there in that matchup. We'll stay at lightweight here, looking at this next fight between Edson Barbosa and Dricus Close. Barbosa minus 140, the betting favorite in the spot against Close, who could be had at plus 120. I like Barbosa in the spot. I think it's a fair play given, pretty attractive odds in the bout. Close not really warranting this tight of a price tag, I think, given his overall skill set. He's going to be at a striking disadvantage against the credentialed, striker in Barbosa, somebody who's been doing this at the UFC level for a very long time, but continuing to do so. His last fight against Lerone Murphy looked pretty good there early, earning a fight of the night in that last matchup, as well as 2 performance bonuses in his fights prior. Still knows how to knock guys out, still knows how to really put damage on opponents, even over the course of a 3-round fight. I think Dricus Close, while he would like to keep this fight, close range, where Barbosa really doesn't have the space to work, where Close could perhaps get his grappling going a bit more. He's not known for having elite wrestling. And, well, I'd be hopeful that a guy fighting out of the lab, sort of implements a strategic game plan. Not necessarily expecting that out of Close, who has always struggled against the upper echelon competition that he has faced. I think Barbosa is on another level than him in terms of his technical striking ability. And despite both of these fighters being a bit, aged for the lightweight division, Barbosa is still very quick, super fast twitch muscles, good reaction time. I think he should be able to, put his hands on Close here. And even if a knockout does not materialize, he should put forth impressive striking throughout throughout this fight. And I think he should be able to win decisively here against Dricus Close. So I'm fine playing him at minus 140, even if he was higher odds in this matchup. I do like Barbosa to get the win.
Yeah, I am on the Barbosa side, maybe not as confident as you, just because we do have Barbosa moving up to lightweight here for the first time since his fight against Paul Felder, which was years ago. Pretty much mixed results for him at 145 pounds. He's looked good. The weight cut's been killing him, though. He is going to look stronger here at 155 pounds, but the speed advantage may not be as pronounced now that he's putting on a little bit more weight. I mean, I like him here. I do think he probably gets it done, but Close has outperformed my expectations in a lot of his fights. So yeah, I mean, I'm on the Barbosa side. To your point, just a much better striker. I'm hoping he throws more leg kicks than we saw from him at 145, because that is one of his better weapons. But it's a great job building up those combinations and keeping himself safe, forcing his opponents to kind of fight moving backwards. Yeah, I mean, Close is decent on the feet, certainly not on the level of Barbosa in terms of his striking ability. I do think Close has a grappling advantage here, but I don't think it's significant enough for him to really, I don't know, rinse and repeat, for lack of a better phrase. He may get a takedown or two, but I don't think it's enough for him to really pull away on the scorecards. I do like the Barbosa side, given his age and the weight class change. Not super confident, but definitely going to be the pick for me.
Okay. Let's take a look now at this next fight at middleweight. Brian Battle, -175, the betting favorite against Nursultan Ruzaboyev. He could be had at +145. The most relevant loss for both of these fighters came against pretty dominant wrestlers down at 170 pounds. Brian Battle moving up to middleweight here after a botched weight cut his last time out. That's the second time he had missed the welterweight limit. Battle, had fought even higher weights in the past. He won the Ultimate Fighter at middleweight, not cutting as much between fights. He was very comfortable at 185 pounds there. I think he's going to fill in just fine competing here at this weight class. It's just a tough matchup for him, I think, in his first fight moving up to 185 in the UFC. Ruzaboyev is big for a middleweight, very tall guy. And I think while Battle's not necessarily undersized in this division, he is going to be undersized in this matchup. I don't necessarily think his punching power is going to be diminished fighting up at 185 pounds, but I don't think it's going to have the same stinging effect as it did fighting the guys he was at welterweight. Fought closely in his last fight, but did well against a similar long striker in Randy Brown. Ruzaboyev not nearly as technically skilled, and oftentimes most dangerous early in his fights. I'm reluctant to bet on Battle, just given all those variables, the moving up and, sort of what we've seen out of him lately in the UFC hasn't been quite as impressive. But the fact that this is a striker he's going up against, not necessarily somebody that's going to take him down or threaten him in that wrestling department. And again, just moving up in weight couldn't do anything to hurt Brian Battle's already superior cardio. I think if this fight gets into a round 2 and a round 3, he's going to be the much fresher fighter. Should be able to win those rounds and take this one rather convincingly if a finish does not materialize beforehand. Just one other point for this fight. Battle you can play right now, -175. You could also bet no distance in this fight at like -150. I think that would favor Ruzaboyev. Probably has more equity to finish in this fight here. But I'm probably going to bet both of those, Battle as well as no distance in this fight. I view it as a bit of a hedge, but I also think he has pretty solid equity to finish. And this likely is a fight that will end up seeing one of these two slumped, oftentimes getting after it, not too reluctant to go ahead and throw hands either one of these two fighters. So should be a good one. I'm picking Brian Battle, but I don't really love the play at a price tag this high.
Yeah, I feel similar in a lot of ways. I mean, almost the theme of this card, guys, switching weight classes, it makes things a little bit difficult in terms of predicting. But yeah, Battle here, he's going to be 4 inches shorter, but he actually has the longer reach, if we're going to believe what's listed by the UFC, 77 inches compared to 76. Ruzaboyev does a really good job kind of striking in a long way using that length that he has. But coming off a weird fight against Stolfus that was much more competitive than I think anyone thought it should be. Prior to that, the KO over Eric McConaughey, you can't really rate that highly. And yeah, I mean, the loss to Buckley is what it is, but like you're looking at this guy's wins, and I mean, other than his debut against Ferreira, I don't know that there's anything all that impressive since he did break into the UFC. I do think he's going to be the better grappler here. But to your point, I don't think that he's necessarily going to lean in that part of his game. He does train out of Philly with the guys like Sean Brady, Pfeiffer, etc. Grappling heavy camp, at least it used to be. So I'm sure that's in his head to an extent. But Brian Battle does have a decent first layer of takedown defense. I also think he's improved in that area in a lot of ways since that Renault fight where he got dominated. I do want to see these guys kind of square off. Obviously, the height advantage is going to be pronounced, but I don't know. I'm interested just to kind of see Battle's demeanor. He's the guy who wears his heart on his sleeve, obviously. He's the pick for me here. Can't say I'm confident, though, just moving up in weight. Will be landing more volume. But Ruzaboyev, I do think, is going to be super dangerous early. And if he does choose to lean on his grappling, I mean, I'm saying this about a lot of fighters, he does have a path to victory here. I just don't think he can do it for 15 minutes. So I like Battle to get it done. We've also seen Ruzaboyev kind of fade at times. Battle, more than anything, kind of builds as his fights go on. I mean, really tough kid, just total dog in there. Seems to get better once he gets hit a couple times. So I do think the matchup does favor him slightly, but I can't say I'm confident just because he's moving back up to 185.
Alrighty, next up, let's look at this women's flyweight matchup between Karine Silva and Dione Barbosa. This is a short notice booking as well. Barbosa taking this fight on abbreviated notice after Silva was originally scheduled to face JJ Aldrich, who did pull out from this fight. I think Barbosa is a live betting underdog here. This is a rematch of a fight that took place in 2019. That fight saw Barbosa win a unanimous decision, although Silva did fight well and had an argument to take that fight, despite all three judges giving it to Barbosa. That was Silva's first performance there after an 18-month hiatus. After her first pro loss, she came back, fought admirably against Barbosa, but came up short in that bout as well. Since then, won every single fight, and then lost her last time out, facing Araujo, taken down on all three of her takedown attempts. And I think that's kind of the key. Well, Silva's a super well-rounded young prospect. She is a better striker than she is a grappler. And there in that fight, the Brazilian was able to take her down and hold her down to the mat, with Silva offering little resistance back up to her feet there. Barbosa can follow a similar game plan. Her judo background translates into effective takedowns. She has good timing on her trips, and she has good jiu-jitsu in top position. Certainly live, getting plus 180 for the price tag. In this, probably a close fight at women's flyweight that even if Barbosa does not dominate with her grappling, she should at least have some moments. And I don't think Silva's absolutely going to blow her out of the water on the feet. While Silva is a very good striker, it's more of a volume striking approach than power. I don't think Silva's really going to necessarily hurt Barbosa many times throughout this fight. And again, if Barbosa's taking this matchup on very short notice and already has a win against the girl, I think she knows something. I think she probably feels confident taking this fight, taking a rematch against Karine Silva here. So I'll take my chance on her as a betting underdog. Another dog pick for me. Not too many selections on this card, but I think it's good value getting Barbosa at plus 180.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those Araujo takedowns came once Silva started to fade, and I do rate Araujo as a pretty solid fighter. I'm actually on the Silva side here. I know that she lost to Barbosa years ago, but if you kind of look at the progression between these two girls throughout their career, I definitely think Silva's made the much bigger improvements in her grappling and her striking. She's going to be very dangerous on the feet here. Probably wins on volume. She's going to look bigger in the cage as well. Barbosa is a really solid submission grappler, but I don't know that she's going to have a ton of success taking Karine down like she had in the past. And again, preparing for JJ Aldrich. Aldrich is getting up there in age, relatively speaking, but I do rate Aldrich well ahead of Barbosa. Again, with this fight being on short notice, I also think there's some narrative in play here too. I mean, the UFC is always looking to build up these Brazilian women's fighters. Karine's last fight that lost did come on that Stipe versus Jones card. Her placement, we saw her on the Sterling O'Malley card. They really do try to put her on some of these bigger cards and winnable fights. I think that's what we're seeing here once again. In the same breath, I mean, Barbosa is also Brazilian, so maybe you could just give her the hype. But yeah, I think they like what they've seen out of Karine more so than Barbosa. Only a year younger, so that's not super significant. But again, I think the short notice nature of the matchup, the gap on the feet here is going to be wide, and the strength as well. I mean, Barbosa did a good job taking Belbita down, but a lot of people have taken Belbita down. When Maverick took her down, she couldn't get back to her feet. I think that kind of tells you a little bit about why this line is where it's at. So I'm on Silva. Won't say I'm entirely confident. Won't be surprised if Barbosa pulls off the upset, but I do think she's the rightful favorite. So
Okay, one more matchup to break down. We were going to have two fights here for the Ultimate Fighter Season 3 finale. The welterweight final has been moved to UFC Noche due to injury. So here for UFC 319, just one the Ultimate Fighter Season 33 finale. This at flyweight between Alibi Idiris and Joseph Morales. Arades minus 200, or I'm sorry, minus 350, the betting favorite against Morales, who could be had at plus 270. I watched all the fights here on the Tough Season. I didn't watch the whole season, though. I'll let you start out this breakdown if you have any more insight than I might on this matchup.
Yeah, Idris, when this season started, was everyone's pick to win the thing. He's a really good prospect out of Kazakhstan, well-rounded, trains with Shavkat. Actually had Shavkat in his corner for a lot of his fights. I imagine he's going to have him here once again. This guy's a good striker. I mean, he's kind of low volume at times, but he throws really powerful kicks. He's smart in the pocket, and he has a lot of power for a flyweight. But his biggest advantage in most of his fights does come on the mat. Really good grappler, great positional awareness, does a good job kind of looking for submissions, but not always finishing them, just kind of using them as a way to wear his opponent out. Not to compare him to Fluffy Hernandez at all, but a little bit of the same just mindset. Not that he can really execute that same style. He likes to strike maybe a little bit more than he should, but I've been super impressed by this kid. I mean, he looked great on The Ultimate Fighter, undefeated, again, fighting out of a good camp, has a country behind him, tons of hype. And he's taking on a guy, Morales, who's talented, but we've seen him before. We kind of know what we're getting. He did have a stint back in 2018 in the UFC where he got KO'd by Davison Figueiredo. That one is what it is. Went to a split against Eric Shelton, very competitive fight. Since then, he's strung together 3 wins, but it's really tough to put much into any of those wins. Went over Anthony Doe via triangle all the way back in 2013. He's looked good on The Ultimate Fighter, but in the semifinal, I'm trying to remember who he fought, but it was a super competitive fight that could have gone either way. Wasn't really impressed by him. His best attribute is probably his BJJ. He is able to take the back of a lot of guys, but I think Idris is the better overall grappler. So I think he has him covered here. Yeah, I like Idris. I think he's a great prospect. I think this guy's going to be ranked at flyweight soon. Morales, tough kid. I'm guessing they give him a contract. Why not? He is better than some of the guys they have on the roster. Pretty fun story, too, working his way back into the promotion. But just kind of meat and potatoes type of guy, especially on the feet. I do think Idris is a prospect to keep an eye on. I just think he's the higher ceiling. Could Morales maybe catch him and take his back here? Sure. It's possible. It's flyweights. It's going to be a lot of scrambling. But I do think Idris is the much better striker, and I do think he is just an animal. Excited to see him in there.
Yeah, I mean, I liked his fights on the show as well. Technical battle there in that first matchup, but the semifinal, great flying knee knockout for Idris there to get the win. I like what he showed in his fights prior to Tough as well. That's some decent competition there over Kazakhstan regional scene. More so necessarily than what Morales faced between his first and second stints with the promotion. I think he's steadily improved. He seems like a more confident fighter now at this level. After going through the show, it's just, again, as you had highlighted, his jiu-jitsu is very good. You see a lot of wins for submission for Morales, and that's not necessarily going to be a clear path to victory here. Fighting a skilled grappler in Idris. He also has pretty clean striking. I like what we've seen out of him. Obviously good judo, good top pressure from a flyweight, but the striking too, the knees, comfortable on the feet, it seems, and always using that as a means to close distance and get in to shoot his takedowns too. I think rightfully favored. Watching the show, it was pretty evident that as this fight was announced, the odds would be in Idris's favor, and yeah, I do think he is the rightful side here. Likely is going to stay undefeated and continue here with a win to be the season 33 champion on the Ultimate Fighter. Obviously, again, stay tuned for UFC Noche here coming up in September, as we should get the welterweight final as well. Should be a good one.
Yep.
So, obviously looking forward to UFC 319 here this weekend, Plessis versus Chimaev. Be sure to check out our write-up on Dione Sports come Saturday for full picks and predictions for each one of these fights. But yeah, enjoyed breaking it down with you, Nick. Be sure to tune in and enjoy the fights this weekend, everyone.
Take care, everyone.